In this video, we'll be looking at what the schizoid defense does, how it relates to the empty core, and the consequences for schizoid lives. So before we get into the schizoid defense, a quick run over what a schizoid individual is. We're talking about a person who lacks close relationships, feels disconnected from the rest of the world. This is someone who finds few activities pleasurable and prefers to spend time alone. What is the schizoid defense? It's a set of psychological mechanisms that serve to create interpersonal distance between our true selves and others. So, in other words, the schizoid defense exists within the psyche as a form of self-protection mechanism that keeps the true self of the schizoid safe and at a distance from other people, by creating a separation between the inner self of the schizoid and the external world. So it could be called a type of psychological and emotional barrier. This causes a sense of emotional detachment from what is taking place in the outside world. Some people say that they experience the schizoid defense as an invisible wall that comes up whenever they interact with other people, and it obstructs intimate communication or emotional self-expression. The schizoid self is a complex issue. During infancy, the schizoid fails to develop a core integrated sense of self, and instead the self becomes split or divided into many parts. Generally, our true selves are kept hidden away and private. Thus far, we know that the schizoid defense works by creating interpersonal distance between our true self and other people. To be more specific, the schizoid defense primarily works by keeping us in our heads and preoccupied with our own thoughts. This means that we tend to be highly introverted. Being preoccupied with our own thoughts means that we engage in a high degree of introspection, and for some of us, we can be heavily consumed by imaginative projections or fantasies. Whilst we're in our heads, we're having a psychological relationship with ourselves, and sometimes, depending upon where our thoughts go, we might have a psychological relationship with other people within the realms of our own mind. For many of us, this is where our main source of pleasure in life is coming from, thinking. Being deeply in our own mind requires us to disengage from the external world, and this occurs through the process of dissociation. This can include us mentally disengaging from our physical bodies. I've made a video on the 7 types of schizoid dissociation if you want to learn more about how this works for us, and I'll link it above. Many schizoids mask their schizoid traits by using a false persona when interacting with others to assist in the process of navigating through social situations. For many schizoids, this enables us to adapt to different people and seem normal, which adds another layer of protection and covers our lack of effect. The empty core is a phenomenon that many schizoids experience. It tends to emerge as a consequence of trauma in early infancy that resulted in a failure to bond with our primary caregiver, and also due to growing up in environmental conditions that did not align with our emotional needs. Due to this, we don't tend to develop a core sense of self-identity, and this is experienced as a feeling of inner darkness, emptiness, or hollowness within. For some of us, this can actually physically feel like a hole or cavity within our chest. The absence of a core sense of identity is equivalent to feeling a lack of self. The schizoid defense defends against any feelings of personal inadequacy that we might experience as a consequence of having an empty core. By employing the schizoid defense, we use mechanisms such as dissociation, isolation, withdrawal, and emotional detachment to transcend our vulnerabilities so that we lose awareness of any deficiency within ourselves. Also, any emotional feeling associated with having a lack of relationships in our lives is significantly diminished. Schizoids tend to present as someone who has no vulnerabilities, and this is mainly because we're unable to perceive or express our vulnerabilities because of the disconnect caused by the schizoid defense. How does this influence schizoid lives? Due to the schizoid defense and being preoccupied with our own thoughts, we tend to value our own ideas, views and opinions more highly than those of other people. This means that we're indifferent to the praise and criticism of others. We seek validation from within and don't seek advice or validation from other people, and we tend to be fiercely independent. Because we're sensitive to intrusion and resistant to manipulation from the outside world, we tend to think for ourselves to a higher degree than average, and so we're difficult to psychologically influence. It means that we don't have any emotional reliance on interpersonal relationships with others, and we're extremely selective about the people who we open up to, which makes us naturally difficult to get to know. There's more to the schizoid condition than this. However, I think this gives a good general overview of how our schizoid defense shapes and influences our lives.